Hey, this is Adam from Rivers of Nihil, and you're listening to the Dan Chan Show.
Hey mate, how's things with you over in Virginia?
They're going pretty well. Just enjoying a lovely fall day here. How are you?
Love it, very well, thanks for asking. So how have things been for you personally in the States over the last 18 months or so with the pandemic and everything?
Personally, it's been a heck of a ride. I moved recently, had just moved to Virginia and had done a lot of touring, and then suddenly the world shuts down, and I'm in this new city.
Yeah,
and
that's strange.
I've got all sorts of things going on, and just having to adjust to life here without being able to do my job, basically.
Yeah.
So it took quite a period of adjustment there, but things are going well.
Good. So let's get to the music. You released new album, The Work, back at the end of September. Great album, man. From what I've seen, the response has been awesome as well. Are you pleased?
Yeah, there was some expected divisiveness over the record. I know it was a bit of a departure for us, for fans. There's a lot of new stuff kind of going on in the record, and I think it upset maybe some diehards who were expecting something a little more what they were accustomed to from us.
Did you expect that? Did you know that was going to happen?
Yeah, I think that was pretty much inevitable. Like from the from the onset, once we started getting these demos together and we started hearing the material and our plans on what we wanted to do layout wise and how we wanted to present the record and the theme and everything, it seemed a little like it would maybe clash with what people had expected from us, but we kind of figured that it would take a little while and then people would kind of latch on to the idea and start to get used to it. Maybe.
Yeah, I got you. So let's get to it. You're the lyricist in the band. What themes do you like to write about? And are the lyrics personal to you, or do you discuss between you guys what kind of vibe you want to create?
I mean, it's in the past, it's been, a little more collaborative, especially between our vocalist Jake and myself. Sometimes he'll take an entire song, or sometimes we'll work on things together, and to achieve a particular vibe. But on this record, it was just all of my work, and we were driving it towards being, a much more real feeling, more personal record. And I mean, it would be hard for me to write about the personal feelings of other people in the band without assuming so much, So a lot of it is derived from personal experience and just thoughts on particular things going on in the world, etc.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I read in a recent interview that you, due to heavy touring schedules and being on the road for such a long time and away from the studio, that it took a bit of time to get your creative juices flowing. What was meant by that, and how did you overcome it? Did you have like a writer's block or something?
I mean, I suppose you could call it that. I mean, it's difficult when your entire industry that's like your whole thing you've built up your entire adult life, which for me is this band, just suddenly gets shut down. I can't do it anymore. Like I'm not allowed to. It would be, illegal for me to do my job. So even for a little while, there are times where it's like, I don't know. There's no certainty that this is ever not going to be the way things are. So it starts to make me think like, well, what other avenues in my life can I approach? And like, I got to have a way out of this, I guess. So it kind of, in a lot of ways, makes you put music on the back burner.
Of course.
Or it did for me, at least. And fighting out of that was somewhat difficult. And especially, with the distance between me and some of the bandmates, physically, and everybody had their own struggles they were going through. It was a difficult record to make on a personal record level, and felt like the world like didn't want us to do it really.
So it was obviously recorded during the pandemic, because also, recently, but was it written and recorded during the pandemic? And what problems did you face?
I mean, yeah, it was written mostly during the pandemic. Like pre-pandemic, we had maybe a handful of demos, and then once the pandemic hit, we had to kind of just communicate long distance to make the record happen.
Yeah,
in a way. And so that was, while not totally foreign to how we've done things before, there was extra strain there, and especially when it came to tracking the record, which took place last November during the absolute height of everything, during the U.S. presidential race and everything, and just we were masked up through the entire session, and there was just this intentional distance that people had built up between each other, and it was hard to like get that collaborative feel that it takes a record sometimes. But I think we used that, and we put that energy into the record in a lot of ways.
Do you think there's anything that's happened during this recording that you might take forward, or will it be like back to the basics of studio life as normal from like going for the next album?
I mean, there's definitely some things from the way we did this that it's not so different than how we've done things in the past, but like when you really break it down, it was more of an issue of like, it really had been so long since anybody in the band had seen each other when we finally did all get in the same room, and everybody's been through so much. It's like we're not people anymore. But so I hopefully in the future we can bridge that gap a little more, become a little more, other than that, I mean, it was sort of business as usual, but hopefully we can leave that distance behind us.
Sure. Now, you've said that you want the listener of this album to find the specific details themselves. You don't want to tell them what it's about. You know what you meant and what it's about. Do you like to hear other people's theories and perception about what you were thinking when you wrote?
Yeah, I love to hear that. I love to hear that anybody's even putting the time and effort to think about it into something that I've helped make.
Yeah, breaking it all down and analyzing all the tracks.
Right. Yeah. That tells me that, it maybe we did communicate some things, in a way that's effective, which is always, for me, a big goal in doing all this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't want, like on the last record, I kind of gave at the onset of the record, of the Owls record, I kind of gave like a brief synopsis of the story of the record, leaving out many, many details.
Yeah.
It's so many people just latched onto that like little paragraph that I wrote and just took that as the gospel and really created this whole narrative into their head about. I had people telling me what the story was and I was just like, I'm pretty sure I wrote it, but
like, that's a cool idea, actually, mate. I like that idea.
Yeah. But and this time I felt like it's more important because there's in a lot of ways, this is an even more quote unquote conceptual record. I feel like it's more strung together as a solid piece than the last one even.
Yeah.
But I'd rather have the details of that emerge with the listener on a personal level.
Okay.
I think it's an important part of the whole thing. It only makes sense if you apply it to your own experience.
So with that in mind, do you write with the intention that the listener's going to listen to the album in its entirety? Does that cross your mind when you write an album?
I would always hope that that's the case.
Yeah.
I think the idea of writing an album.
No shuffle on your albums.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't appreciate that idea much. Maybe just for scientific purposes, if you want to switch things up for fun. But I lay these things out very intentionally. Not to say I haven't made a few mistakes in my days layout wise. This one in particular, though, I'm quite fond of the way that it flows, in particular. It's just, I don't, everything should work together, ideally. I think if you want to write a full length record, you shouldn't just be writing 3 or 4 hot singles that you're going to put in the first 4 tracks, and then fill it up with a bunch of back end nonsense. Like you should, make the whole thing work if at all possible. That's always been my goal. Varying degrees of success, of course.
Yeah. And one last question regarding the writing. There's a play on different vocal styles on the album, Clean to Scream, shall we say. When you write lyrics, do you know which vocal style is going to be for which line, or is that decided when it comes to the day of the sessions?
I mean, a lot of times I have a pretty clear idea when I'm writing. Like I usually, when I hear the instrumental versions of the songs as demos, usually like the songs in a way kind of, I listen to them and they kind of tell me what the vocals sound like. You can hear it kind of sing to you. And there's certain parts that I'm just like, this needs to have a more melodically sung line, and I'll dream up something that fits there. And some things are played to effect, or sometimes we'll lay out a basic idea in the studio, and then somebody will come up with an idea of a way to jazz up a particular part, whether it be effect or another layer or something. We try to really just like let loose with the vocal stuff when we're in the studio. Now,
you've done 2 EPs. Is this your 4th or is this your 5th album?
This is the fourth
album.
Full length.
So how do you feel like you've evolved through all your recorded sessions and your albums and your EPs? How do you think you've evolved as a band?
I think it's funny. I just did yesterday or the day before. I went back and listened to everything. Just because this last record, is supposed to be the capping off of this 4-record seasons concept run that we've done, and so I thought it was a good time to go back and listen to everything. And it really is just each record, and even the EPs are just like they're a product of our time and like sort of the challenges we face. Like I can hear the struggles and the reasons for each decision, because we know these things so intimately now, and it's like there's I think that's the evolution. It's personal, and like it's always overcoming some sort of challenge, whether it's somebody who didn't believe that we could accomplish something, or maybe challenging ourselves to write different sorts of songs.
Okay.
That being the case on this record, especially. That's always the evolution is sort of, it's intertwined with where we are and like how it is we're surviving as a band in a way.
There's chapters. So I love the album artwork, and I love all your artwork you've done. How involved do you get with the visuals?
Pretty involved. Usually what like on these 4 records at least that we did with Dan Seagrave did all the artwork.
Nottingham in England. Yeah, that's where I'm from originally.
It's an amazing artist. Really the onset of our career was really our only number one choice for who we wanted to do our album art.
He's brilliant.
And so just such classic death metal stuff. And so like I always the impetus there is that like especially at the onset, the band was sort of like, we wanted to be like a modern take, I guess, on a classic death metal band, if that makes any sense. So it's like, sort of the postmodern idea of death versus like, like songs about killing people, maybe more introspective take on like aging and things like that. And role of humanity,
which can be equally as brutal.
Right. And so the art, I always wanted to have that same sort of dichotomy. Like, what if you take a classic death metal guy who's just known for, making the most brutal skull and blood filled nasty stuff, and like have him do some like really Bob Ross type introspective landscape stuff that just, feels a little more grounded in that way.
Now you're firmly locked in with death metal, with death metal roots, but do you like being called like genre defying?
Yeah, I guess I sort of resent when people like, say things to us like, well, why, like this is, you guys are supposed to be like a technical death metal band or something like that.
Yeah.
I see that from time to time, and people are upset about.
Hello, mate.
Recording in progress.
Hello, mate. I don't know what happened
hello.
there. No idea what happened there. Are you there?
Yeah. Yes, I'm here.
Cool, man. I don't know what happened there. I think it's my end, stupid internet. But right, what you got to? I was going to say, do you want to ask that question again? Do you mind?
No, yeah, that's fine. What was it again?
I said, we'll go for this. I said, you're firmly locked in with Death Witness. I'm going to say again.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say the question again. It's better, and it's better for my edit. You're firmly locked in with the death metal roots, but do you like people calling you genre define?
I guess, like, I suppose whatever people want to call us is cool. The genre defying tag is something it sounds good to me, but as long as nobody is like pigeonholing us into specific areas, like when somebody says like, oh, I thought something like that, I thought this is supposed to be a technical death metal band or whatever, like.
Yeah.
It seems it's so limiting. And so defeats the point of music to me. Like I like when artists do a lot of different stuff,
experimentation,
but it's still the artist, like
Michael
Jackson used to do that kind of thing. You listen to a full Michael Jackson record and you're getting pretty wide spectrum of different musical styles, but just through his lens. And that's always sort of a kind of idea that I like to play towards.
So with that in mind, do you enjoy challenging and pushing yourselves musically?
Yeah. Whether that's from a purely like we have to play this really hard riff really fast kind of standpoint, which lately has not been quite as much. It's been more of like, can we write a strong ballad or something like that? Can we write a song that feels like it could be on the radio in a particular time period? Like that's more the challenge that we've faced ourselves with lately is to see if we can because if we can really stretch our legs as songwriters, we should be able to exist in lots of different realms. In my opinion.
Yeah, of course. So on to touring. You just come off the back of a huge North American tour with the Black Dahlia Murder. How was that?
That was awesome and very life affirming. It like I said, in the pandemic times, it's kind of easy to forget your purpose, and you start to wonder whether or not touring and being in a band is something that you should be doing. But then to go out and do a tour like that is just so killer and awesome with amazing bands and everybody crushes it and the crowds are amazing and it just was a bigger sign than ever that we got to keep going.
Did it feel different at all, like playing not post pandemic, during the pandemic, whichever way you look at it? Would it feel any different?
Thankfully, no. It felt shockingly the same as it used to, and that I couldn't have asked for anything more. And it went so well that it just makes me feel like maybe this can come back in full swing and we can just do this again. Which feeling like sometimes I've lost in the past year or so.
I'm sure. Now, with regards to your live shows, is it quite complex recreating your sound live?
It can be to varying degrees. We have pretty large sprawling arrangements in a lot of parts of our songs that require a lot more manpower than we typically have available. But we do what we can to supplement with backing tracks and what have you, and just playing parts that on different instruments that it should be on one thing, but it's on another. But and also bringing on guests when we can. Like Zach Strauss, our sax player, a resident sax guy.
So cool.
Will join us when opportunity strikes.
That's mint. Yeah,
I like to do as much as we can with that, and when allowed, I at some point I would love to do a completely full production of just about anything we can do, with
be awesome.
With all instruments represented live.
That'd be awesome. So talking about what are your touring plans for the next year or so? Are you getting over to Europe?
We've had a few festivals announced for next year that are all posted on socials and stuff like that. So we'll be over there for that, and then also in November of next year, we'll be doing a co-headlining tour with Archspire, with Allegiant, Black Crown Initiation, and To the Grave supporting us.
Cool.
Which was rescheduled from this year.
Yeah.
Due to circumstances.
Where's your favorite place to play? You've played a lot of places, whether it's the States or a certain club, or where's your place? Oh, yeah, that's cool to play there.
There are a lot of them. There are a lot of places.
Give me one, Adam.
One. It's hard not to pander, but I do love playing in the UK. You guys have been very good to us. I do love Canadians. Tend to love us too. It's great. Sheesh.
Yeah.
It's hard. Maybe New York is amazing, but I hate driving there.
Yeah.
I had a great time in Australia a couple years ago. It's so hard to choose. I love to play anywhere that people are excited to see it. That's all that really matters to me.
Of course.
Because at the end of the day, it's dark on the stage, and you just see the people. It doesn't matter where we are.
Yeah. That's cool. Now, personally, what personal tastes, do you get a chance to check out new music? What are your musical influences, and what were your musical influences growing up? Just a snapshot.
It's always such a big, long, stretching story. But I grew up. My dad is a songwriter of sorts, and he'd fill the house with music all the time, and he listened to tons of stuff from like Tom Petty and Moody Blues and the Beatles and things like that nature, and then lots of things like Yes and King Crimson and Pink Floyd started to really just seep into my brain.
Brilliant.
And those things kind of really took hold, but eventually somewhere we got onto a rocky path, and I got really into nu metal in my teenage years.
Yeah.
Which shifted into like a love for hardcore punk once I found that scene.
Yeah.
So, and then, all of these things kind of just rush up back to you eventually in the, and that's what it kind of, the energy that I kind of bring forward into our band now. I feel like it's a little bit of prog and a lot of metal, and then, also like that American kind of punk feel.
Yeah, I get that. I spoke with Stefan from Obscura recently. They do a real cool thing by putting their backing tracks on their website for fans to download for free to play along to. Do you enjoy seeing your fans playing along to your tracks?
Yeah, that's a pretty nifty idea. Yeah, we're always down to do those sorts of things.
I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah. If there was enough demand for it, we certainly would. I know, like Brody likes to sell his guitar tones specifically.
Really?
Yeah. So that's a thing that happens.
That's cool. Now here's an interesting one. Before we came on this call, I just watched a segment on Revolver online with people discussing the heaviest riff of all time. What do you think is the heaviest riff of all time? That whole stink face.
Yeah. The heaviest riff of all time.
In your opinion.
Yeah, it's probably 21st Century Schizoid Man.
Really?
In my head, yeah, that's nothing really gets me going quite like that riff.
That's so cool. So finally, what's the message to fans new and old, Adam?
Well, thanks for listening, and check out the new record if you haven't yet, and we'll see you all next year across the world.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Adam, for the chat. Good luck with the future, and I'm looking forward to seeing you sometime next year.
Yeah, thanks for having me.